two things I want you to remember. The first thing is, when you are researching, your job is to really share all the knowledge that you have and communicate that to an audience who's really interested in your topic or who will become interested in your topic because of what you want to share. So remember our goals: communicating information and knowledge that we have so that other people can learn from it. The second goal is you want to become an expert on this information. The way that you become an expert is by looking at many different sources. Now, some of you also said, well, I already looked through them, they look great. The purpose of Monday's assignment was for you to really look at the sources carefully and to take notes on things like publication date, who the author is and what their credibility is in terms of writing an article. What kinds of information are presented? What type of website is it? So that you're really analyzing where the information is coming from so that you get the best information possible. So what I'd like to have you do is just follow along with me. Some of you still don't seem to be sure about how these lessons work. If you watch the video and you have the sheet with you that explains it, all the directions are right there. So any kind of confusion that you might have, again, I ask you to read the directions, watch the video, and look at the examples that I'm giving you, because it's all right there for you. Research involves thinking. It involves putting your ideas in order. It involves connecting your ideas to what you're reading and trying to think about your audience all at the same time. It's a very complex process and not something you can just kind of whip off in an afternoon. You can make some initial starts that way, but over time you will learn to develop some strategies for putting all of those ideas together. And one of the first of those is note-taking. Now, we have practiced note-taking primarily using Cornell Notes. But today I want to remind you of some other strategies that might work for your note-taking. Before we do that, I bet you're wondering what Piper is up to. So let's take a quick look at the Corgi Cam to see what Piper's been up to today. So note-taking requires a few different strategies to help you figure out what is really important in your research. So one of the things that we want to do as we're reading the information that we have from our sources is we want to try to create a visual picture or a mental picture in our minds about what it is that we're reading. This is the article that I've chosen to start with. It's called "Why Are Frog and Toad Populations Declining?" Research suggests that even though amphibians are severely declining worldwide, there is no smoking gun, and thus no simple solution to halting or reversing these declines. Though every region in the United States has suffered amphibian declines, threats differ among regions. They include human influence from the Mississippi River east, including the metropolitan areas of the Northeast and the agricultural-dominated landscapes of the Midwest, disease, particularly a chytrid fungus in the upper Midwest and New England, pesticide applications east of the Colorado River, climate changes across the southern U.S. and the West Coast. Amphibian declines are a global phenomenon that has continued unabated in the United States since at least the 1960s. Declines are occurring even in protected national parks and refuges. So as I read that, the image that comes to my mind is that there really isn't one single problem or one single source that's causing the environmental issues and impacts on frogs, on the frog population. The idea that I'm getting is that it might be different in a number of different regions, and it depends on where the frogs live, how they're being impacted by these negative environmental issues. So let's read on a little bit more and see if the ideas stay the same or if they change in the article. And then I want you to think about what your pictures, your mental images might be, and see if they match what I come up with. The average decline in overall amphibian populations is 3.79% per year, though the decline rate is more severe in some regions of the U.S., such as the West Coast and the Rocky Mountains. If this rate remains unchanged, some species will disappear from half of the habitats they occupy in about 20 years. So what I'm seeing in my mental images about this is that it's really kind of in the same topic as what I just read. It's talking about the declines of the amphibians and where this is happening and how fast it's happening and what will happen if things don't change, and we might lose a lot of our frog populations and frog species. So far, the article or the information in this article is really related to, kind of going back to its title, the decline in frog and toad populations. There's one last section of the article that I want to take a look at. And let's see if there's a change in the pattern in this section. Amphibians are good indicators of significant environmental changes. Amphibians, unlike people, breathe at least partly through their skin, which is constantly exposed to everything in their environment. Consequently, their bodies are much more sensitive to environmental factors such as disease, pollution, toxic chemicals, ultraviolet radiation, and habitat destruction. The worldwide occurrences of amphibian declines and deformities could be an early warning that some of our ecosystems, even seemingly pristine ones, are seriously out of balance. As I look at that last paragraph, I'm starting to get a little bit of a change in my picture, in my mental picture. The first section was really talking about the regional impacts on the declines of the populations. It talked about some of the environmental factors that could be playing a role in those declines, including such things as pesticide use, human impact, those types of things. But this paragraph really shifts to talk about why it is that amphibians are the perfect indicators for some of these environmental problems. And the picture I'm seeing is really of the frog itself. It talks about its body being very sensitive. It talks about its skin and how they breathe through the skin. Because I've been up close to frogs and I've held frogs before, I know that they're very sensitive creatures. And so if an environmental problem exists, it's going to impact something that's so sensitive like a frog and give us a good clue as to what's happening in its surrounding ecosystem. So my picture changes a little bit as I shift to that last paragraph. What types of note-taking are going to be appropriate for the different articles or websites or videos that you're watching? What type of note-taking is going to work best?